PR Connections Radio presents
Okay, hello everyone. I'm Trenton Brisco. Welcome to the very first podcast for the Brisco Bridge to Foster Care in Nevada, proudly sponsored by the video you just saw, the National Youth Advocate Program, a foster care agency here in Las Vegas, in Nevada, and across the nation. A quick disclaimer before we dive in: foster care policies and practices vary by state. I'm not claiming to be an expert. The podcast exists to help bridge the gap from those who know little about the system and want to learn more, to those considering fostering or just looking for a better understanding of how it works. Now let's kick things off. Our very first guest, my friend. She's been in the trenches. She knows the system. We went to college together. We had a criminal justice degree, if I remember correctly. And this is Maria Jacobi. Maria, how are you today?
Thank you, Trenton. Yes, I am doing very well. Thank you for asking.
So, Maria, can you share with the guests your experience in and around the foster care system?
Well, I can give you a little bit of my background. I started in 2012 as a case manager for Clark County Department of Family Services. And I did it for a little bit, and then I decided to pull away, and I went with Nevada Early Intervention, which was great because I was basically building myself up because I knew I wanted to return back to Department of Family Services. And I eventually went to Child Haven. So I had learned a lot for like 9 months with early intervention, and I decided to work at Child Haven campus with mostly the Agassi Cottage, which is newborn to about 6 years of age.
So Maria, you're bringing up a great thing. People are listening and they're watching and they're thinking, what's Child Haven? And I know this because every time I talk to people, they all say, what is that? Okay. Can you help the viewers, the listeners understand what is Child Haven?
Child Haven is a 24-hour shelter for children that are removed from their families, their parents, due to negligence and abuse, child abuse. It is supposed to be a 24-hour emergency shelter for like a period of time for these children, but realistically, they are there for sometimes months at a time. But if there's no family and there's no foster parents to come and, check the child out, there's a lot of things that has to be fine-tuned before a foster parent can actually come in and take care of this child and see, especially with mental health involved.
So to help everyone understand, this place houses the children who don't have a foster home to go to. They stay there until a foster home presents itself, right?
Correct. No family, or there is a family that didn't pass background, because they go back about, I'm not really sure because it's been a bit, but 20 years back, with a background. So it's kind of intense for some of the family members where they might have like a check cashing issue that they used to do check cashing, fraudulent, and they didn't pass background because of a simple thing.
Right. And do you remember, I kind of have an idea of this number, but I want to make sure since you actually lived it a little bit. Do you know the capacity that Child Haven has?
It should have Agassi 12, I think 10, 12, 24. about 24, 2, 4, 6, no more than 80 for the whole campus.
Okay, because I was told it was 90.
Yeah,
So that's probably about right.
right.
And I was also told that recently, and I don't,
Mhm.
make it completely right, but I was told by a person high up that there is currently over 120 kids on campus right now.
And that's true because after school there's a high levels of intakes, and usually it's around Christmas time. Usually it's around summertime because the teachers report, and usually it's back to school where the teachers will report, or a lot of domestic violence causes stuff in the heat, Christmas holidays, and the children, it's a higher rate during this time.
Yeah, and now isn't there another place in town that they have overflow that goes to, or is that still being used?
That I know of, no, we don't have. I mean, apparently we used to partner with a lot of other places to try to get like Oasis, try to get a lot of these children to come in, especially teenagers, and place them right away.
Yeah, I know that there was a location on Rancho that was for battered women, and then they used
Yeah.
half of it for the shelter. Did they don't do that anymore?
Not that I know of, and because a lot of our teens, when they do have babies, they do go in the teen cottage.
Got it. So at the end of the day, we have a lot of kids in this place called Child Haven, and the way to get them out is to get more people to become foster homes so that they can help these kids have a home, have a life, just be a part of a family, and that's the key. So, anything else, Maria, that you want? I know I cut you off at Child Haven, so I would love to hear more of what you've done, or other stories maybe that you've had that you'd like to share that would help the viewers maybe learn and understand things a little bit better.
Sure. The Child Haven is the front end of CPS. Usually the children come in through Child Protective Service, through a NEA worker, and then they take them to Child Haven. I was working as a case manager, so I was at the back end where they were already cleared up. But working at Child Haven, I mean, you have to have some dedication. You have to have some good staff. There's lots of good staff there that are dedicated to these children. My experience back before around COVID, we had a high rise of children during COVID. We were nonstop. We were employees working with kids with COVID. We had an area where we had to put them away and isolate them with staff that had to stay there for a period of time. These are dedicated employees, and Child Haven, for being a no reject shelter, will take anything because of the fact that these are children and we're here to protect them through the county when I was working there. Mm-hmm. And 2022, our union did a big, basically, we were being activists to make sure that we were heard because I was bitten by a mental health teenager that I was very bruised when she bit me. Thank God I didn't get anything torn out. I had to be rushed to UMC. But right now, the battle is with mental health, children with mental health, teens, younger children. As you know, bill legislation about mental health and helping, teens and children is always going to be something at the table during legislation.
And I'm glad you brought up mental health. I know this is something that a lot of viewers need to understand. If you're drawn to becoming a foster home, it's not going to be the easiest thing in the world. These kids, yes, they have mental health issues, and why? Think about why they have them. Look what they've been through. And let me go back, and I'm sure Maria will feel this because she's been in there. She's had all the kids from ages infant and up. Imagine when you were in the womb as a child. You were a baby in the womb. What do you receive while you're a baby in the womb? You receive the feeling of love, like nurturing, soft music, all that. Well, these babies don't get that. They don't get that. And then when they're born into, they're not told no, they touch everything. They're not being nurtured. They're not run to them when they're crying. They're not getting all of that. So when you get these kids over time, mental health is going to happen. And really, we just need to be there for them. We need to help nurture them and reset them you know? And a lot of people want to foster thinking they're just going to get a brand new kid. They're going to have their son or daughter. And it's not like that. But I will tell you this, those kids are more appreciative because they especially when you're actually a good foster parent, you're not doing it for the wrong reasons. They appreciate you on a level that you'll never, ever, ever forget. And you'll always be happy you did what you did because you changed a life for real. Your own children will not give you as much as some of these kids will give you. And that's the key. So again, you got me on something when you talk mental health. It makes people scared and they run from foster care. And it's so opposite. Like they just need help and we need to be there for them. They are our future. If you don't help these kids and they grow up to be adults and they don't have any help, what do you think is going to happen to our future? You know, so you got me on my pedestal there.
No, and you're totally right on that. I mean, Child Haven, when the children come in, working in that field, the firsthand when children come in, medically neglected, lice, you know, bed bugs. I mean, we tend to them, behavioral issues. A lot of these children don't have autism. A lot of these children have autism and don't get services through a certain, you know, wraparound services. So what we used to do is we used to basically walk through with these children and help them and guide them and build them up. So that way, when foster parents would come on site, they would say, oh my goodness, he's come such a long way. He is thriving at Child Haven. And that's what the staff at what the cottage I worked at, Agassiz Cottage, have done. They have built up these children and they thrived in Agassiz Cottage to help the foster care. So that way the foster parents don't get burnt out and have to bring back the children. And here we go again. The children are going round and round in circles, home to home, Child Haven. So, you know, Child Haven is great because of the fact that we can get rid of the lice. We can help them build up. We can plug them in with early intervention, with DRC services. All that stuff is all there in one-stop shop at Child Haven. And we can, you know, pinpoint their behaviorals and work with them. Sports Social comes on site, used to come on site there when I worked there with a lot of the autism and children that needed, that were intellectually disabled, that would work with them before they would go into a foster home. Make it easier for the foster parents because, yes, like you said, there's so much more than just being a foster parent, because we could be a parent to a normalized child, but when it comes to mental health or behavioral issues, there's a little bit more dedication that a foster parent has to give.
Right. So can you share with us from your experience, what are the majority of the kids in there for? I know you kind of said it already, but I really want the viewers to listen. I want them to really hear why these children are in there. It wasn't always because they're bad children. You know what I mean? And that's what they think. They think of these kids as delinquents rather than, let's look at them from the other side of the spectrum here and think about their parents had issues and couldn't parent them. So what are some of the ones that pop off your head?
Okay. These are learned behaviors. These children learn from their parents. So when they come on site, it's not their fault that they're, you know, being neglected. A lot of these parents have domestic violence issues. That was a big thing. Child abuse issues with stress involved with parents not having money, not having food, trying to provide for their children. So guess what? Who gets the beating? The children. So you get a lot of addiction behaviors with these parents. You get a lot of mental health issues, and they keep having more children. And the more children that are being removed, especially with the mental health parents, they decide to have more children because they can't handle their children being away. The most that I've seen was a lot of domestic violence, because then you get domestic violence involved, and then you get one parent hitting a child, and then you get a child hitting another kid. And then it just becomes behavioral. But domestic violence during the holidays, during the summertime, was always at a high. Child abuse during school, teachers will report at its highest too. But I honestly think that it all stems off from domestic violence.
Right. You know, Maria, I know you probably remember this, but I for the viewers that don't know this, most probably don't. I had 42 kids come through my house over a 7-year time span. within that time span, the 42 kids ranged from 4 years old all the way to 18 years old, right? Mm-hmm. And I had some kids, I had the kids that nobody wanted, right? Typically, most of them, they were saying, hey, these kids run away from every home. I had a lot of runners, and I had some that stayed at my house the longest they've ever stayed anywhere. Mm-hmm. But one thing I will say, and if you looked at probably half my kids on paper, you would have been like, stay away, I don't want that kid. And that's when I started realizing, as I was fostering in the system a couple years in, I realized that those kids that were everyone didn't want, mm-hmm. I had to have, because I knew that it wasn't their fault. And I knew that because I had a ton of kids already for the first couple of years.
Correct.
But the point I'm making is, I will say this, every single one of those children were great kids when they wanted to be. And it was all their parents, all of them. And there were even parents that were still in their lives. They got to see them, and they made the system believe, and they made me try to make me believe that it wasn't them at all. And sadly, if they're listening now, it's always been you. You were the adult. At some point, you did not do something, and your child went into foster care. I'm sorry, but that's just the truth. And it always came down to that. And one of the things that I taught my kids is, as soon as they got in my door, I said, let's all talk to each other about what happened to me. Let's all be open about it. Now, some kids didn't tell it right away, but they started to kind of be a part of this family, this team. And after they were able to open up and say what happened to them, I said, now it's time to leave that over there, because now you're being told it's up to you to change it. And you can't live in your past anymore. It's time to move forward. And if I see you when you're in your 20s and you're in jail or you're in trouble, I'm going to look at you and say, this is nobody's fault but yourself. And I understand people are like, that's harsh. They're in the foster system. I don't do that until I can break them down enough to show them that it's time to be that way. And unfortunately, these kids need a little bit of harsh reality, because they are in a terrible situation. And I always tell them that. I'm sorry that that's the way it is. But what are we going to do about it? Let's build on it together. I even tell them to forgive their parents, give their parents grace. Their parents didn't have the training. Their parents aren't bad people. They're just bad parents. In some cases, there are some bad people.
Correct.
That's the way you have to look at life. When you have these kids in your home, immediately one of the first things that parents do is, oh, little Bobby's such a sweet little boy. His dad is terrible. And they immediately hate the parents, right? Mm-hmm. I changed that. Don't hate those parents. Give them grace. You have no idea how they were brought up. Right. And unfortunately, they had a child, and now they're trying to do it different, and they didn't do it well either.
Correct.
And here's the problem. You worry about losing your child, the foster kid. Oh, what if it goes back home, and now I'm heartbroken? Well, maybe you should friend the parent that might get them back. And maybe that person can become like a younger brother or sister to you. And you could see their kid now. And now, not only do you have a new child in your life, but now you have a new family member, 2 new family members. And sometimes that works. I still talk to some of the parents to this day. Sorry, I just got my little boat about that.
No, and you're fine, because you know what? Talking to town, when I was a case manager and at Chow Haven, Trent was the best foster parent for teens, because you had consistency in your home, and teens need consistency, even though they didn't have it as a child. But as a teen, consistency is the best, and a schedule where they know they're going to be held responsible for. And you were the best foster parent for those kids that were placed in your home, because those kids needed that consistency, not necessarily a father figure, but the consistency of a home that was going to be always the same. So that way they know that they have something in life that, they're going to go to work, eventually work 8 to 5. So that's consistency. You're going to go to church on a Sunday. That's consistency.
Right.
So yeah, you were by far, I mean, I'm going to praise you right now because, you know, you were a good foster parent at that time.
I put a lot of effort into my time. I made sure that, you know, we went on hikes every weekend. We went to a restaurant once a week. We had game nights. We had, you know, Taco Tuesdays. We had spaghetti Sundays. Traditions. They never had traditions. I remember I took one of my kids on his first day with me. I took him to Target, and I said, dude, all you got is 3 pair of sweats. Well, let's buy you some jeans. It's cold outside. And we're buying some jeans, and he starts crying. I'm like, he's 13 years old. I'm like, what are you crying for, man? And he goes, I've never owned a brand new pair of jeans before. And I was like, what? Wow. And that hit me there. So then I started realizing these kids, you don't know it until it happens to you, you know? I had another kid that was sitting at a restaurant, didn't know what to do. And I was like, what's wrong? I was like, look at the menu. He's like, I've never been to a restaurant before. And I was like, wow. So we have to remember as people, what we've grown to understand and learn and do, these kids have never had. And
Correct.
So I'm all about giving them experiences, you know? And since we're on that topic too, sports, right? Sports is a huge thing in my life. I've coached all my life. I remember when I started fostering, I said, you know what? I'm going to put these kids in sports. Man, I'm going to coach their team. I had some kids that were all the same age. So I'll make my own team, you know? And to this day, 42 kids later, one kid got through a full sports season.
Good.
One, that's it.
One.
They all quit. So what I learned was they don't do well in team sports. They don't do well where there's a coach that holds them accountable too much. What they need is to be on a team sport where it's more singled out. For example, we started a BMX racing team. That's great because you can go out, you're a part of a team, but you're racing by yourself. So you're only holding yourself accountable. And then if you miss a practice one Tuesday, it's all good because you're racing yourself.
Right.
So that's a good sport for candidates in foster care. Gymnastics is good for foster care. We also did an MMA training program where, again, we were on a team. It was called Team. And they all really bought into it. And a couple of the kids, I think, went on to continue doing it when they left my house, which is great. In fact, I saw one of my kids it might actually do a fight for some league, and he's like in his late 20s. So, man, hey, okay. You know, I kind of started that.
I remember when, I'm sorry, before I forget, I remember when you did the educational tour of a UNLV school of dental medicine.
Yeah, that's right. I totally forgot about those. So I did vocational jobs because my kids aren't going to college. My kids, in fact, they don't even graduate high school. Majority of them do not graduate, and it stinks. Some do. You got to put that extra effort in. So I started taking them to vocational schools to get them to show them that these are other options that you can do. And so again, experiences are huge. So if you're listening and you want to foster, or heck, if you want to start a program, if you want to make some sort of change for the kids, you don't have to foster. I would love for you to foster, but why not start a program? Start a program if you have a little bit of money and you don't want to take some kids in, and hit me up. We'll get that program and make it happen. So yeah.
I mean, and it's so true because all the times that I worked there at Child Haven, at the time I was a single mom. My child was second grade, and I raised him throughout working for Department of Family Services. And I always wanted to be a foster parent, but I'm like, goodness, I knew the hard work of being a single mom with a son who's very active in sports, marching band, church activities, family vacations. I just knew that I need to make sure I give him the attention. And I was scared that I wasn't going to be able, because I would give all my attention at work, and then coming to work with another child, I just felt it wouldn't have been fair, you know. But now that I'm 51 and I'm living here by myself, I'm like, sometimes I think about Well, maybe I could take a teen on.
Is Maria ready to join the National Youth Advocate Program?
And my nephews are living with me right now, going to college at UNLV in a HVAC school. They're from California. I'm like, I'm going to be by myself.
Are you happy where you're working right now? I might have to hire you and bring you over here with us.
Right. I'm very happy working for the state of Nevada through DRC. And now that I see that the Valley has so much wraparound services, and Trent, you do great with a lot of services and plugging in and wrapping people around with things. I've noticed DRC, early intervention, all the places I worked at, and Department of Family Services, social services, how they collaborate. And that's what it's about here in the Valley. With this city being a transient city, getting a lot of the Californian residents coming with their children and coming from areas that were a struggle for them and bringing those struggles here, they get caught up with 24-hour drinking, 24-hour gaming. It's difficult for some of these parents, but.
Yeah, and having said that, it's also very difficult to find people to be foster parents because of that. They like to party and they don't want to, but there are humans out here that don't party, by the way, everybody. Vegas is not just a party city. But having said that, it is difficult. We do have we have to make sure you have no arrests. And we have fine lines we can walk, but just know you can't just become a foster home just because you want to. You have to pass all the stuff, pass background check. And all adults in your home have to pass that background check, not just you. And I know I've had that too, Maria. I've had some people reach out and man, their heart is so there and they love children and they're a nurse or they do stuff already that's obviously that they're givers. And then all of a sudden they're like, yeah, well, my husband has an issue or my wife has an issue. I'm like, I'm so sorry, but we just can't approve you if that's the case. And just know that, be prepared to possibly be let down if you know about that situation in your home. And you can't hide it. A lot of them, I've had them try to hide it. And I'm like, it's gonna come up,
Right.
You can't hide it. But here's what I try to tell them, especially let's say this nurse that I had. I said, hey, I know how badly you want to do this, and I can hear the heartbreak in your voice. I said, but I could always make you a non-primary, and you could go to a house and help somebody at a house. And I think that's the viewers need to understand what a non-primary is. A non-primary is somebody who gets checked off by the system, background check and everything, and they're attached to somebody's house. And it's kind of like a glorified babysitter. You can use them as a babysitter. I know when I was fostering, I made my dad the non-primary. So if I had to go somewhere and take a vacation for a day, I used to take Wednesdays off. My dad would come over and be me. And then I'm a single dad when I foster. A lot of people don't know this either. You can be single. You just got to make sure you have all your stuff lined up on how your extra support. So just know that there's ways that you can still help. There's ways that you can still be involved, and don't just shut it out. I know that I used to want to foster since I was literally like 16 years old. I said I would foster one day. And as I got older, I was thinking, well, I never got married. I'm never going to be able to foster kids. And I started working at an agency that opened up a division for foster care. And I said, I want to work for them. So I went and I joined that department. And then they said, well, why don't you foster? And I was like, well, I'm not married. And they go, you don't have to be married to foster. And I was like, what? So one of the reasons why we're doing this show is so that people can hear stories like this and gather things, maybe watch our next episode next Friday at 9 a.m. and learn until they feel comfortable enough to give me a call.
Correct.
I know we're going to wrap this up here shortly, but I just want to know, Maria, do you have any final thoughts that you want to discuss?
Yeah, coming across a lot of foster parents, it's dedication. You have the heart in the right place and you can give that attention to the children. I think it's the best thing. There's so many great foster parents out there in the community that have been doing it for years. And they do have programs where they all can connect if you're a new foster parent. But it's dedication and working through with these children and not giving up so soon with these children.
Yeah, and I think that's huge to know that when you step into fostering, you get support, especially with my agency. I know other agencies do it too, but you need that extra support. You're not doing it alone. Don't think that you're coming in to foster and they're just going to throw a kid into your house. You know, they're not going to just throw a kid at your house. You're going to be able to figure out all about the kid before it happens. And then I always say this: if you're drawn to do this, man, just dive in head first. I'm telling you, because you'll just talk yourself out of it. You'll find, or some people who are negative will tell you something negative. You know, everyone talks about the negative, but never the positive. But I'm going to tell you, I'm going to give you one positive. I've said this before. I had a kid reach out to me on Facebook. He reached out to me about 6 months ago. One of my ex-foster kids. I know him, cool kid. Barely talked to him when he was at my house. Very quiet to himself. 6 months later, ran away. I was like, yeah, I don't think I made a difference in that one, you know? Well, that kid reached out to me in an email. And that was right when I started working for NIAC. And it's almost like it was meant to happen. It was meant for him to email me at that moment because it inspired me to do what I'm doing right now. It inspired me to push harder at doing this job, expressing how amazing this is. I had 42 kids come through my house. I had hell at times, but I also had some great times. This kid's email said this. It said something like this. I can't remember exactly anymore, but it said something to the fact that I just want you to know you were the only father figure I've ever had in my life. You changed me. Being in your home was amazing. I am now a dad. I work on the strip in a very good location, and I'm thriving. Thank you so much. And I'm like, holy crap. And you don't know until you get it, until it hits you, until you were in that. And then made me think to myself, God, just think what some of the other kids who I did make a difference in. I know I did. This kid, I didn't think I did. And that was all it took for me to know that what I went through was totally cool, man.
Yep.
Good. And I'll do it again. In fact, I'm now going to go back on becoming a foster home again. I took a break because of my daughter, but now I'm 7 and I'm thinking, you know what? Let's do it. My daughter would love to help kids, you know?
Yep.
So, anything else, Maria?
Nope. Everything else. I just thank you so much for allowing me to be on your podcast.
Yeah, thank you. You were like one of the first people I thought of. I was like, we have history.
I feel important. Yay.
Yeah. So I will wrap this up. That's our time today. I'm going to give a thank you to Maria for being a part of my first episode of the Brisco Bridge to Foster Care Nevada. This show is here obviously to help you learn, grow, maybe even take the next steps towards fostering. If you're feeling the pull, if you can call or you can text. You see my number right here. If you feel like reaching out to Maria just because you think she's cool, I'm sure you can find her somewhere on social media. I'll be hosting a weekly, check this out, Maria. I'm going to be hosting a weekly Thursday informational brunch. Yeah. So every Thursday, you can come down to where I'm going to have my brunch. I'll pay for your lunch or brunch. And if you are into it, I'll even bring you an application. But I'm there for information. I'm there to help you feel me out, to see if you want to be a part of my team and foster. I also run a bi-monthly training that we bring in new homes. So know that eventually you'll have to go to that so that we can get you started in training. So whenever you're ready, you keep watching these episodes. You can come down to my brunch when I give you that information. Follow me on Instagram using my name. It's easy that way. I'm also a filmmaker, so don't be like, what is this guy? And I also put on business mixers monthly in town. So if you're a business and you're interested in helping this process, helping me get this out more, being a sponsor for us, come to my Instagram. You'll see all my business mixers that happen and where they happen. We would love your support there. And remember, when you open your home to a child, you're not just helping them. You're also helping yourself. These kids will teach you a thing or two about life, resilience, and love. If this speaks to your heart, I'm here to help you take that next step, change lives, one home at a time. Thanks for listening. Thanks for viewing. Maria, love you. And let's catch up soon, okay?
Thank you. Yes, for sure.
All right. Thank you, everybody. Till next Friday, 9 a.m. Take care.
PR Connections Radio thanks you for watching this podcast. Check out more episodes of this show and our others at prconnectionsradio.com.